Christendom is no more, and the traditional structures of the church, including its buildings as well as its institutions, are unfortunately declining very rapidly. I don't see any way of reversing that. They are being partly replaced by new spiritual movements of a kind, New Age movements, or by charismatic movements, and even Christian churches outside the traditional churches. Unfortunately, buildings like this are going to be a problem for the churches, as they are already in Europe, where the cathedrals, which were a magnificent manifestation of Christian belief and practice in the Middle Ages, are now a millstone around the neck of the churches, so that I've often said that the churches in Europe have become a society for the preservation of ancient monuments. It's sad because, you know, my earlier part of my life was so strongly associated with the church. In my ministry, I was still very hopeful that the church would move through the problems that were coming on the horizon and renew itself from within. The church has failed to do that, and I can see now I probably it was a vain hope. If one tries to trace the way in which modern knowledge has undermined some of the aspects of the Christian tradition, you can see it in the ceremonies, particularly in the Christian year. And the Christian year was a way of experiencing the basic elements of the Christian tradition, with the birth of Jesus, the death of Jesus, the giving of the Holy Spirit, and so on. Easter began to disappear. It hasn't disappeared completely, but it no longer has the significance. It's largely in New Zealand a secular holiday. Now, what about Christmas? Christmas, which supposedly celebrates the birth of Jesus, has retained its interest. Now, why has it retained its interest? Because it's been changing, and it is ceasing to be the celebration of an historical event. Of course, all the trimmings of Christmas are there because they help to give it a lot of vitality, but it's changing in its interest. It's becoming a family festival. So more than ever, people try to gather together as a family at Christmas and renew the relationships. One which shows the greatest change is actually the funeral service. The funeral service has changed in character and become, if you like, secularized, brought back into this world, with the other world being out of the picture now. At the beginning of the 20th century, the funeral service was one in which you were actually celebrating the send-off from this world to another world, and the sure and certain hope of the resurrection, as it were, into the world to come. But by the end of the 20th century, more and more, the service is a commemoration of the life that has come to an end. And often these services, they tell a lot of stories about the people and recall all that they've learned from the people, or have been glad to have that person as their friend or relative and so on. And indeed, some funeral services have quite a lot of laughter these days and merriment as they rejoice in what that person has been for them. In the global culture, which appears to be evolving, even if it's in its embryonic state at the moment, we need rituals in which we can express our togetherness and the things which we value together, which we are a form of worship. And they will revolve around the acts of nature for the most part, as they once did in the past. Nearly all our rituals originated in the forms of nature. And one, for example, would be the renewal of the earth, which takes place in the springtime. It shows the creativity that there is within life itself. So that's one thing we need to celebrate. Associated with that is, of course, the winter solstice. So I think as we come to realise our dependence upon nature, we shall create our festivals around the natural events.